is very old. St. Thomas Aquinas wrote in, I'm going to try and say this correctly, okay? Summa Contra Gentiles, Book 1, Chapter 16, Article 4. He talks about Muhammad. He says, Muhammad seduced the people by promises of carnal pleasure, to which the concupiscence of the flesh urges us. English is my second language. His teaching also contained precepts that were in conformity with his promises, and he gave free rein to carnal pleasure. And all of this, as is not unexpected, he was obeyed by carnal men. As for proofs of the truth of his doctrine, he brought forward only such as could be grasped by the natural ability of anyone with a very modest wisdom. He did not bring forth any signs produced in any supernatural way, and Muslims will not lie to you. This is the truth of what I was taught as a Muslim child. Muhammad's miracle is Quran. Okay? His other miracles that he speaks of, that are supposed to be miracles to take into consideration for him being the last prophet of God, the chosen one. Well, there was the one where he moved on this unicorn from Mecca to, from Medina to Jerusalem, and then from Jerusalem up to the heavens. But I want y'all to just think about this. The God of the universe gave the different prophets, even if they're fairy tales, he gave them all different miracles that they could do. Moses split the sea, Jesus fed the 5,000. You know, even Muslims will tell you, he brought back people from the dead, and he also healed the sick. All of Muhammad's miracles happened in private. Not one witness. Ever. It's just his Quran. And trust me, when people tell you, oh, the Quran is the miracle because nobody could write something like that, it's true. I read the Quran in Arabic. It gives you a headache, and it's not because it's intricate, it is because it is ridiculous. Okay? All of a sudden, he throws verses in there like A, B, C. Well, I asked my teacher, I'm like, what is this verse supposed to be? Literally, it's like Sa, Qaf, Ta. It's 3 letters. That's one of the miracles of Muhammad. The miracle is I don't understand it. What's the miracle here? So, you can look up what St. Thomas Aquinas had said about this. And, let's see here. Yeah, sure.
Farrah, can you start your live stream?
Yeah, sure.
Can you start your live stream? I mean, can you?
Oh, don't worry about it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm passive. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. Okay. Now, you can look into that and what St. Thomas said, and he will go through many different details and many different points. Now, in John 8:11, Jesus told the adulterous woman, go and sin no more. Is everybody familiar with that? All right. Thank you. Well, what did Muhammad do? Wow. Very ambitious, Mike. Okay. That's all right. Thank you. All right. Oh, that's okay. All right. A woman came to Muhammad. This is Muslim 174206. Okay, when we're talking about the hadith, there are 2 sources that all of Sunni Islam, all of them agree is scripture. There's Sahih Bukhari. The word Sahih only means correct. Okay, it means that all of Muslims came together and said, yes, these are 100% doctrine. So there's Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. This is Sahih Muslim. A woman came to Muhammad and said, Allah's messenger, I have committed adultery. And then she was pregnant, and then when she delivered the child, she came with the child wrapped in a rag and said, here is the child who I am giving birth to. He said, go away and suckle him until you wean him. When she had weaned him, she came to him with the child who was holding a piece of bread in his hand. She said, Allah's apostle, here is he as I have weaned him, and he eats food. He entrusted the child to one of the Muslims and then pronounced punishment, and she was put in a ditch up to her chest. And let me see, I need to get into this, sorry. Up to her chest, and he commanded people, and they stoned her. Does the God, the eternal God of the universe, change his mind? John 14:6 says, Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus doesn't mince words. He doesn't even say it in a parable. He's like, these people are going to not get it for 2,000 years. I better say it nice and plain for them. Quran 112, the first verse says, this is called Surah Al-Ikhlas. It's chapter 112. Say, He is Allah who is one, Allah the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there to him any equivalent. This chapter is very important to Christians here, okay? This chapter in Islam, okay, so in Islam, you have demerit points and then you have gold stars. Okay, that's how it's judged whether or not you're going to go to heaven. Unless, of course, you do jihad and die in the sake of Allah and kill people, then you get a one-way ticket to paradise, regardless of what you did. So, when you read the Quran, you get gold stars. The more gold stars you get, the more likely it is you're going to get into heaven. This one chapter in the Quran, chapter 112, you get the equivalent gold stars of reading a third of the Quran. A third. If you read this chapter 3 times, you get the same amount of gold stars as you are reading the entire Quran. What's the significance of this chapter? It's very simple. Deny that God had a son. So how are you going to look me in the eye and tell me to worship the same God? Bukhari, volume 4, book 52, number 73. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abi Aufa, whatever his name is. Allah's apostle said, know that paradise is under the shades of the sword.
Uh-huh.
Ouch. Muslims don't like it when you bring that one up. Yeah. The next one does an ouchie too. Matthew 5:29. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Quran chapter 33, verse 37. I urge you to use this verse. It is the one verse that causes so much embarrassment for Muslims till this day. This is Allah talking to Muhammad. And remember, O Muhammad, when you said to the one on whom Allah bestowed favor and you bestowed favor, keep your wife and fear Allah, while you concealed within yourself that which Allah is to disclose. And you feared the people, while Allah has more right than you that you fear Him. So when Zayd had no longer any need for her, we married her to you in order that there not be upon the believers any discomfort concerning the wives of their adopted sons, when they no longer have need for them. And ever is the command of Allah accomplished. Who knows that story? Muhammad had an adopted son. His name was Zayd. Muhammad, for whatever reason, walked into Zayd's house without announcing himself and found his wife naked. And he lusted after her. And apparently, he did not tell anybody this, but Allah knew about it. And Allah left everything else that was going on in the world and concerned himself with Muhammad's lust and said, when Zayd is done with her, let him divorce her when he's done with her, and you can have her as a wife. And this is the verse that also is the reason that Muslims are not allowed to adopt. So you see, Allah eventually says, you're not even supposed to adopt, so technically she's not your daughter-in-law, so it's okay, just go ahead and have her. But after Zayd's done with her, not before, just so we're all fair. Psalms 23, chapter 4. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. Quran chapter 2, verse 223. Your wives are a place of sowing of seed for you, so come to your place of cultivation however you wish, and put forth for yourselves. And fear Allah and know that you will meet Him, and give good tidings to the believers. There's no marital rape in Islam. Founding fathers. Now we're going to go into Islam in the United States. Remember when President Obama stood there and said Islam has contributed since the beginning of America? We have doctors and lawyers. Well, he didn't tell us the doctors were actually performing FGM on little girls, female genital mutilation. Does everybody know what that is? Yeah, okay, we don't need to go into details. It's pretty heartbreaking that's happening in our backyard. But John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, all truly did experience Islam early on. I mean, we were paying, I had read, up to 30% of our income to Berber pirates who were Muslims. When John Adams and Thomas Jefferson went up to them and said, what's your problem? We don't even have anything to do with you. He said, well, that's what Muhammad and Allah told us to do. We're going to raid your ships. We're going to take your guys. We're going to take everything that you own. We're going to continue to do it. America used to pay the jizya. That's what the 30% was.
Yeah.
Now we just call it funding for public schools that are Muslim. Ouchies. John Quincy Adams said, in the 7th century of the Christian era, a wandering Arab of the lineage of Hagar, the Egyptian, combining the powers of transcendent genius with the preternatural energy of a fanatic and the fraudulent spirit of an impostor, proclaimed himself as a messenger from heaven. What do you think he's talking about? And spread dissolution and delusion over an extensive portion of the earth, adopting from the sublime conception of the Mosaic law the doctrine of one omnipotent God. He connected with it the audacious falsehood that he was himself his prophet and apostle. Now he goes on, and it's a pretty long text, and he says in the end, the essence of his doctrine was violence and lust, to exalt the brutal over the supernatural part of human nature. Our founding fathers were well aware of Islam. Thomas Jefferson, there was recently a Muslim in Congress who was sworn in on a Thomas Jefferson Bible.
Ellison. Keith Ellison, our Attorney General.
Keith Ellison. There's a prize right there.
Oh, yeah.
Laura Loomer tried her best with that guy. She really did. But here's the thing. Thomas Jefferson had a Quran, and he was believed to have said every American family should have a Quran, not because he thought it was swell, but because he thought that we should know who we're fighting and what we're dealing with.
Yeah, that's right.
Quran chapter 3 verse 151. We will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve for what they have associated with Allah, of which he had not sent down authority, and their refuge will be the fire, and wretched is the residence of the wrongdoers. Allah doesn't mince words either. He's the first terrorist. Right there. Quran chapter 2 verse 193. Fight them until there is no more fitna and until worship is acknowledged to be for Allah. But if they cease, then there is to be no aggression except against the oppressors. Okay, so the word again is not fight them. The word comes from the word qatiluhum, okay, which means kill. Fight till the death. Until there's no more fitna. Fitna is anything that Allah doesn't like. So for example, ladies, Allah doesn't like you to have your hair out and to wear those colors and to not be Muslim women. Men, Allah doesn't like you when you take out the trash. Okay? He doesn't like it when you don't discipline your women. He doesn't like it when you're not a Muslim. And he doesn't like it if you're not a Muslim and you're not paying your jizya. Bukhari, Volume 1, Book 8, number 367. The Prophet rode, and Abu Talha rode too, and I was riding behind Abu Talha. The Prophet passed through the lane of Khaybar quickly, and my knee was touching the thigh of the Prophet. He uncovered his thigh, and I saw the whiteness of the thigh of the Prophet. Honestly, I don't know why this isn't here. I don't know, like, they were telling a story, and all of a sudden, like, he's talking about how white the thigh is, and it's weird. Like, dude, there's no reason for that. Yeah. So, when he entered the town, he said, Allahu Akbar, Khaybar is ruined. Whenever we approach near a nation, that evil will be in the morning of those who have been warned. He repeated this thrice. The people came out of their jobs, and some of them said, Muhammad has come. So he attacked Khaybar. Khaybar was, by the way, a Jewish village. They were merchants. They were very peaceful. They minded their own business. Muhammad attacked them. And they didn't know that this attack was coming because here they are coming out of their jobs. They had no idea what was going on. Well, he says, we conquered Khaybar and the booty was collected. Dihya came and said, oh Allah's Prophet, give me a slave girl from the captives. The Prophet said, go and take any slave girl. He took Safiya bint Huyay. A man came to the Prophet and said, oh Allah's Apostle, you gave Safiya bint Huyay to Dihya, and she is the chief mistress of the tribes of Qurayza. And she befits none but you. So the Prophet said, Bring him along with her. So Dihya came with her, and when the Prophet saw her, he said to Dihya, take any slave girl other than her from the captives. Anas added, the Prophet then manumitted her and married her. So here's, in another hadith, here's an explanation of this. We're going to go after it. Thabit asked Anas, "Oh, Abu Hamza, what did the Prophet pay her as mahr?" He said, herself was her mahr, because he, let her out of slavery and he married her. Anas added, while on the way, Sulaim dressed her for marriage, and at night she sent her as a bride to the Prophet. So the Prophet was a bridegroom, and he said, whoever has anything in terms of any food should bring it. He spread out a leather sheet, blah, blah, blah. They sat down and they ate, and then he went and he raped her in the tent. So here's what happened. When they go in, they kill all the men. Well, how do you decide who's a man? What they did back then, what Muhammad did, was take down the pants of the boys, and if they showed any signs of puberty, they would be considered a man, and they'd get killed and beheaded with the other men. The other boys would be taken as slaves. The women would be taken as sex slaves, and the girls would be taken as sex slaves as well. So here's Safiya. She's a Jew. She's a Jewish woman, a Jewess, and she is the chief mistress. And another guy took her, and some other guy felt like that was not right, and he went to the Prophet and he told him that. So the Prophet actually asks her, Muhammad asks her and says, would you like to be a slave, or would you like to be my wife? Nice choice. Now that day he had killed her father and her husband. Some other sources say that he also had killed her uncle and some other people. What kind of a human being does that? I mean, just on the basic decency level.
Right.
And she says, well, I'll be your wife, I guess. So he freed her from slavery. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
When you marry a woman in Islam, you have to give her what is called a mahr, a dowry. So that people asked, what was her mahr? Well, he freed her from slavery. So you're going to enslave the girl, then free her from slavery? That's going to be your mahr? This guy is something else. Ibn Ishaq. All right, you can find this in pages 675 to 76, 995 to 96, Reliance of the Traveler. When the Allah-inspired prophet heard what she had said, he asked, who will rid me of Marwan's daughter? A member of her husband's tribe volunteered and crept into her house that night. She had 5 children, and the youngest was sleeping at her breast. The assassin gently removed the child, drew his sword, and plunged into her, killing her in her sleep. Marwan's daughter, her great offense, writing a poem against Muhammad. True story. She wrote a poem. This is why Islam is incompatible. This is why when Muslims went in and killed a bunch of people over the Charlie Hebdo caricature thing they were doing, this is why it was halal. She wrote a poem and she got killed. And it was a man from her husband's tribe. When you really think about tribal mentality, that is huge. That's like somebody killing his own sister. Okay? Quran chapter 4 verses 144. O you who have believed, do not take the disbelievers as allies instead of the believers. Do you wish to give Allah against yourselves a clear case? When somebody tells me they have a friendly Muslim neighbor, I like to put that one in. And then I like to say, hey, buddy, have you ever heard of Mosul, Iraq, where Muslims and Christians were neighbors for like 1,000 years? They were breaking bread together. When ISIS went in, they found the Noon. I'm sure many of you have seen it. Noon for Nasara, Christians, on the doors of Christians. Now, who do you think went around identifying Christian homes? Their Muslim neighbors. I've only heard of 2 cases where Muslims warned their neighbors and tried to get them out. Truth is, when it comes to it, if it's your life or theirs, they're going to pick theirs. And they've been neighbors for 1,000 years. So don't tell me about your nice, friendly Somali neighbor who just moved into the neighborhood. Quran chapter 3 verse 28. Let not believers take disbelievers as allies rather than believers. And whoever does that has nothing with Allah except when taken precaution against them in prudence. And Allah warns you of himself, and to Allah is the destination. You are permitted to lie as a Muslim to a non-believer in order to advance the agenda of Islam. Okay? So when CARE comes out and says Islam is peace and jihad is some kind of, what do they call it? Like a struggle within yourself, I think is what it is. Lie. I mean, it's 3% of jihad, I believe is what Dr. Bill Warner said. 3% of jihad, and I had never heard of it, okay, until he said it, is a self-struggle. The rest of it is all against the infidel. It's all against the non-believers. And let me tell you something. If you're not a Christian or a Jew, you don't have the option to become a Muslim. That's an automatic death sentence. The option to become a Muslim or to pay the jizya is only a privilege for the Christians and the Jews. That's after the fighting is done. Bukhari, volume 5, book 58, number 236. Khadija died 3 years before the Prophet departed to Medina. Khadija was his first wife. He stayed there. He had 11, for those who were asking. He stayed there for 2 years or so, and then he married Aisha when she was a girl of 6 years of age. And he consummated that marriage when she was 9 years old. Yeah. I was just reading the other day that there are hundreds of applications for spouse visas for underage girls. Say, what are we going to do about that? Quran chapter 65 verse 4. And those who no longer expect menstruation among your women, if you doubt, then their period is 3 months. And also for those who have not yet menstruated. And for those who are pregnant, their term is until they give birth. And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him of his matter ease. This is talking about divorce. When a man divorces a woman in Islam, if she is menstruating, she has to wait 3 months before she can marry another guy. Okay? And this happened often. As you can see, they changed wives quite often. It was not an issue. Now it says here, if she has not yet menstruated, she also has to wait 3 months. That means he had sex with her before she even hit puberty. But then Muslims will deny and say, oh, no. We don't marry girls before they hit puberty. Really? So Allah just threw that in there as a freebie? Quran chapter 4 verse 59. O you who have believed, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those in authority among you. And if you disagree over anything, refer it to Allah and the messenger if you should believe in Allah and the last day. That is the best way and the best result. So whenever a Muslim comes upon any matter, she has to check and see, what did Allah say about it? Allah didn't say anything about it? Well, what did Muhammad do? What did Muhammad say? Then you do that. If he didn't say anything about it, then, and this is a verse they like to play with too, then you go to those among you. Those among you doesn't mean that you go to the Supreme Court of the United States. Those among you means you go to your sheikh or your imam at your local mosque. So let me tell you this. If you have a mosque in your neighborhood is officially becoming Sharia-compliant. Understand that there are marriages taking place there. There are divorces taking place there. There are very possibly honor killings and other things going on that should not be going on. Very, very possibly. Underage marriages are probably happening there. You see, the purpose of the mosque, and I'm going off a plane here, but the purpose of the mosque, people always associate it with the church. And it's not the equivalent of a church, but that always goes with the whole, all religions are the same thing. The mosque's first purpose is political. Okay, so it's a place where they gather, back in Muhammad's day, they gathered to discuss their plans for fights or who they're going to kill or whatever it is, was all happening in the masjid, in the mosque, in the jami' it's also called. The second purpose for it is, it's like a family court. Okay? It's a social court. The third purpose for it is prayer. Muslims can pray anywhere. They can pull out their rug in the middle of the road and pray as long as they're headed towards Mecca. That's all that really matters. And they've done their, wudu, whatever, of cleaning up. So the prayer is like down the list of things of what the mosque is purposed to be. Quran chapter 16 verse 101. And when we substitute a verse in place of a verse, and Allah is most knowing of what He sends down, they say, you, O Muhammad, are but an inventor of lies. but most of them do not know. So this verse came down from Allah because you know how Muslims are always quoting peaceful verses in the Quran? There are peaceful verses in the Quran. In fact, the first 13 years that Muhammad was talking about Islam was very peaceful. That's when he was a minority in what was called Quraysh and is now known as Mecca. When Muhammad went to Medina as a refugee, and he had a lot of people around him and he had strong forces, all of a sudden Allah changed his mind and he doesn't want Muslims to be peaceful anymore. And now he wants to kill them until there's no more fitna. So because of all of the changes that were happening, Allah found it necessary to say, yes, I'm eternal, I've been around for a long time, but I decided to change my mind at the last minute. That's what this verse says. So Islam follows the concept of abrogation. Whatever the verse that came down last, it abrogates the last verse, completely wipes it off. The other one is just history. And you have to be careful also, I know I'm deviating again, the Quran is not in chronological order as it sits right now, okay? You have to kind of do the research for yourself and divide it up into a Mecca Quran and a Medina Quran. And what really matters is the Medina Quran because that came in afterwards. So it abrogates everything that came in the Mecca Quran. All right, moving on. Just be like, Farrah, move on. Quran chapter 3 verses 54. And the disbelievers planned, but Allah planned, and Allah is the best of planners. Now, when you go to Quran.com or any Islamic source, understand that their translations are rolled in sugar and dipped in maple syrup. Yes. And it's not non-GMO. And the disbelievers planned, the word is not actually planned, the word is deceived. But Allah deceived, and Allah is the best of deceivers. So this also goes back. This is not just for why Islam is incompatible with American society and with our Constitution, but why it's incompatible with Christianity. Because we know that God is good, and He's all light, and He's not deception. So what do we do, right? That's the question. So what do we do? You gave us all this bad news, and you ruined our evening. Well, there's a list of things that you can do. You can support good organizations that are trying to fight this. Act for America is one of them. Global Faith, the Global Faith Institute is a fantastic institute that's doing a lot of really good work. You can even support your local church in their efforts. I mean, if you can find a church right now that actually goes out and tries to help people and not, include themselves in the interfaith movement, that would be nice. The interfaith movement, avoid it like the plague. Unless you're going in to cause a ruckus by asking the question of, is Jesus the Son of God? Right? You can speak up, okay? Make your voice heard. Get squeaky and get loud. Get very loud. Show up. It is amazing that y'all showed up tonight. I'm so impressed. You have to understand, usually when we go to places, if Islam is not really a big factor, then we have smaller crowds. But when we go to Dearborn and Detroit, everybody's interested all of a sudden. And it's because, guess what? Now it's in their backyard and it's in their front yard. And when I go to Western Michigan, I'm like, come on, people, it's right next door. Show up. Just learn this stuff, just so you can even have a conversation. Shop. Here's the thing. Muslims live out their religion, their belief system, daily with everything that they do. A Muslim will not spend a penny at Walmart if he can shop at a Muslim shop, even if he has to pay more. Okay? And we need to start doing that too. If we know that an American owns a small business, we need to start paying up, and we need to start supporting them. Because every time that we shop somewhere, even on Amazon, I look at who the shop is. Because I was looking for Arabic books for my daughter, which, by the way, is almost near impossible to get from non-Islamic sources. Somebody needs to do something about that. And a lot of them are Islamic. And you have to be careful where you're shopping from. Be careful what organizations are donating to CARE, ISNA, the OIC, the Interfaith Movement. Talk with your dollars. It's very powerful. Be a nosy neighbor. That's awesome. We need nosy neighbors in America. We really do. We need people that are paying attention and who are not saying, oh, that's not my problem. We really do need that. That would save a lot of us, because when you're a nosy neighbor and you're finding out what's going on with your Muslim neighbor, when you see one guy and 4 or 5 women coming in and out, then you can start asking, does he have multiple wives? Oh, well, his daughter is all of a sudden gone. Where is she? Trust me, if you don't ask the question, nobody else will. Another thing is to make your stand known. And this is only if you're really interested in saving Muslim girls, even Muslim boys from Islam. If you are the kind that they know, has talked to their father and you're really friendly and you're like, oh, kumbaya, they're not going to trust you to come to you if something happens. But if they know where you stand, then you have a better chance of being able to help them, even if that means they come to your door and you call 911. So this is going to be tough. You also, of course, can go and vote. And you can support Free the Captive. It's a good organization. The girl heading it, good quality human being. Okay? So here are some people that I want you to meet. And I'm going to put this up here. Hopefully this doesn't yell at me. And I hope you guys can see this. You can also Google them. Sure, thank you. This is Noor al-Maliki. Noor got... It's yelling at me.
Oh, you have a speaker behind you.
Okay. Noor al-Maliki, her last birthday, I believe, was her 20th birthday. She was a Muslim girl who decided she didn't want an arranged marriage with a guy who was almost twice her age in Texas. And she had a boyfriend and she didn't want to wear the hijab. And so therefore her father ran her over with his car and killed her. This is Noor al-Maliki. Now, bear with me, please. Thank you. I want you to listen to this. I know it's going to be very hard. But listen to it you must. Well, you don't must. You can walk out of here. Sorry.
Some new developments coming to light in a newly released taped phone call involving a Valley honor killing case. ABC 15's Corey Rangel listened to this call, and Corey, the tapes revealed police had to protect the victim even in the hospital from her own family.
Katie, the victim's own father, ran her over with his car and then took off. In the early stages of the investigation, the call shows police couldn't trust anyone and kept the daughter's location guarded.
Until he is located, we're not mentioning where she's at.
I want to see her.
Well, that's not possible at this point.
Worried about Noor al-Maliki's safety, Peoria police would not even tell her own mother where she was at.
Why? I'm a danger?
Well, you could be.
Police recorded this phone call with Noor's mother shortly after her husband ran over their daughter and her boyfriend's mother. At one point during the call, Noor's mother defended her husband's actions.
Your daughter's about close to dying.
Close to die?
Yes, she's in critical condition.
Tell her thank you, Amal. Thank you. That's what she needs. She needs to protect family. That's what she needs.
You're a sick individual.
With her husband still on the run, police say those comments justified them guarding Noor's location from her family, despite repeated pleas from Noor's mother asking to see her daughter.
I want to see my daughter.
You just sat there and told me that everything that happened to them was okay. And now all of a sudden you have concern for your daughter. No.
Okay. Tahani Mansour. Tahani Mansour, her last birthday was her 27th. Her dad shot her in her own bed. The rest of her family was there. I believe there was 5 siblings in the house. Her crime, she broke curfew and her room wasn't clean. She was a pharmacist. She's beautiful. Y'all should see the pictures. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go through these. Hatis Peltek. She was in New York. Tahani was in Ohio, just so you know. Tahani was in Ohio. Hatis is in New York. Her last birthday was her 39th. Her crime, her husband stabbed her and hit her with a hammer to death. Her crime, she found out that the uncle, I'm not sure if it's her brother or his brother, the uncle had molested her older daughter. So she took the 4-year-old to the gynecologist. And because the gynecologist looked at his daughter's privates, he attacked his wife, his 21-year-old daughter, and his 4-year-old daughter with a hammer. Only killed the mom. The rest of them were with injuries, and I can't find out anything about them. That was in New York. I know this is hard. I know it is. Shaima Al-Wadi, victim of Islam in Texas. Last birthday, 32nd. Crime, wants a divorce. Death, she was hit on the head with a blunt object. Murderer, husband. Now this one is the height of irony. Asiya Zubair Hassan, how many people have heard of her? Her husband is one of the founders of Bridges TV, the TV that's meant to help clean up the reputation of Muslims in the United States. Yeah. Her crime, she divorced her husband. He beheaded her at the TV station. And justice, 25 years in prison. Now this baby. Palestina Isa. Her last birthday was her 16th. She was a victim of Islam in St. Louis. Her crime, she got a job and dated a black boy. Death, she was stabbed by her father while her mother held her down. Justice, they got 25 years in prison. Now, they actually have the federal tapes of her murder. Everything was recorded because her father was suspected of terrorist ties, so the FBI had a recording in the house. That's the only reason they knew what happened. By luck, by sheer luck. And you can hear, I heard the tapes. Lubayna Ahmed, another victim in Ohio, her last birthday was her 39th. She got a divorce. She got her throat slit by her husband. Now he got the death sentence. But he also slit the throat of her sister and her sister's 2-year-old niece and her father. He killed everybody in the house. Sarah and Amina Sayed, 2 sisters, 17 and 18 years old, refused arranged marriages, too westernized, had boyfriends. Their father shot them 11 times, I believe, after their mother lured them. And their mother, guess what? She was an American woman. Just a white gal. Justice, he's still not found, and she was never prosecuted for being an accessory. And CARE is very invested in all of these cases. They show up on the door and say, don't use the word honor killing. Don't use the word Muslim. Here's another one that you're probably not going to like me for.
What's going on, man? Fire department. Ma'am, are you still there? Ma'am, are you still there? All I got is she's telling me she's dying. I'm getting it. Are you still there, ma'am? Ma'am, what is your address? Ma'am. The cab in our cab stand. They're going to do there's a driver. But there are 2 people inside the cab, one in the passenger seat.
Sarah and Amina Sayed got on the 911 call. They got into their dad's cab and they were trying to get away. And he continued to shoot them, to kill them. If you actually go in, there's a documentary about honor killings, and they have videos of him just stalking them. And his wife was right there next to him. So this is real. Just recently, a doctor in Michigan got let loose after she was performing female genital mutilation on little girls. True story, here in Michigan. Not here, but in Michigan, in the United States. All right, there are honor killings, there's honor violence. The 2 Saudi girls that committed suicide, has anybody heard about them? 2 sisters that apparently taped themselves together and threw themselves off the bridge. Very impressive. They were Saudi girls that had run away from home, had said they were experiencing domestic violence, and they didn't get the help that they need. The Obama administration crippled the justice system in this country. They absolutely crippled it, especially for Muslim girls. When you're not allowed to use the right terms, how are you supposed to fight the right people? Our police, they've got their hands tied. They don't get the training that they need. As a matter of fact, there are organizations like Sharia Crime Stoppers who try to go out and simply educate them on honor violence. Listen, these are the questions you have to ask. Make sure you get the girls alone so the family's not listening to know whether or not they're going to tell on them. Make sure that they trust you. There are literally police departments, when ISNA and CARE find out that there's going to be training going on, they jump on it, they make a lot of noise, and they get it canceled. Yeah. And this training can save lives. Now, I know this is going to sound kind of depressing, but it's what I live with every day. My dad put a fatwa on me, that's a judgment, on my life through a mosque in Canada about 10, 12 years ago. About a year ago, he contacted a relative of ours in Jordan and basically said that he was going to kill me because I'm fighting Islam. Well, I'm sorry, you've been killing people for 1,400 years. Excuse my PowerPoint presentation. And all I'm asking you is to make noise, not to worry about losing your job. I know it's a lot. And to not have my face be the next one in the next presentation. I'm well armed, actually. It's pretty cool. But this is why I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment. Can I get an amen? Yeah. Thank you. Because I've seen how ISIS swiftly went through that disarmed Middle East, and they think they can do the same thing here, and I'm like, bring it on. It's about time. No. Yes, please.
How can there be a female imam?
There can't.
I heard there was.
There is one in London. Now, she also has death threats on her. I mean, I can go outside and say I'm a blue elf. It doesn't make it so. You cannot have a female imam. It is absolutely forbidden in Islam. The voice of a woman is awra. Awra means like forbidden, kind of like your body, you would say your genitals are awra. The voice of a woman is awra. So her voice should not be heard.
When we were at the other gentleman's presentation, he had a female imam on there. Well,
what did I just do? Here it is. Yeah, they do lie a lot. Now here's something else. Yes, that's called there's many words for it. Taqiyya, kitman, sukut, there's many words for it, but it's all back to that verse that I was talking about. And here's the thing, it's like, oh, okay, if the voice of the woman is awra, what about Linda Sarsour? She won't shut up. Well, she's useful right now because there's such a thing as cultural jihad. And right now our culture is all about the Me Too and push the women out. And Linda happens to be very loud. And
that's who it is. Is she the imam?
no, Linda's not an imam.
No.
She's just a Muslim Brotherhood roach. Did I say roach? Her last name does mean cockroach. Sarsour. Honest. Really, it is in Arabic. I'm not making it up.
Lie about it.
Questions?
Yeah, you said something about the Sunnis fighting the Shias.
Yes.
What's the difference? Why are they fighting each other?
Thank you for asking that question. Yes. So people ask that question all the time. How come Muslims are killing Muslims? Well, what's the definition of a Muslim? Before Muhammad croaked, he was asked, who should take over for you? Because he didn't have any sons. Okay? So he said, he who is closest to me. The guy couldn't even name somebody. So Muslims got divided back then into two different groups. The first group said it should be Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Abu Bakr was his best friend and Aisha's father, his favorite wife, the 9-year-old. Well, those are the Sunnis. That's what I was born into, is Sunni Islam. That's the majority of Islam around the world that you're going to be dealing with is Sunni Islam. Salafis, Wahhabis, all of them fall under Sunni Islam. Okay? Well, there was the other sect that said, no, it should be Ali. Ali ibn Abi Talib was his cousin and his brother-in-law, or son-in-law, sorry. He was married to Fatima, his favorite daughter. Well, those are the Shia. Since then, they've been divided and they've been fighting each other for rule over everything. Now, there are several things that they agree on. Most importantly, that we should all die.
Yeah.
Okay? Whichever way you flip the coin, it doesn't turn out well for us. The other thing that they agree on, wiping off Israel. They agree on that. Now, even within Sunni Islam, there is a big fight between where, how many of y'all remember President Obama going to Egypt and standing on that podium and saying, this is a time for change, blah, blah, blah. He was at Al-Azhar University. That is the heart of Islam. If ever there was a university of monsters, Monsters Inc., it's Al-Azhar University. Okay? Al-Azhar University is fighting with Saudi Arabia for ultimate power. Of course, Saudi Arabia, their only claim to power is the fact that they have Mecca. That's it. One of the sayings that they used to say all the time when I was a kid is أطهر أرض أنجس شعب, which means the holiest of the lands and the filthiest of people. So within Islam, true, this is, Middle East, they said it all the time. Even within Islamic society, there's a hierarchy. Okay, there's a social hierarchy. I have never ever seen, and I don't think I ever will see, a black Muslim married to a white Muslim. Because black Muslims are not considered high enough in the hierarchy. Black people are referred to as abid. Slaves. That's what they're referred to as. Muslim or not, that's the reference to them. And it's heartbreaking to see how Muslims are going into the jail system and going into black neighborhoods and completely taking over these young people in their minds and convincing them, the outrageous thing, convincing them that Islam freed slaves. Muhammad not only had slaves, he had several slaves, and he had several sex slaves. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the trade routes for slavery coming out of Africa, even in ye old days, Muslim merchants were heading up that gang. Yeah, it might be the Dutch that went and got them from Africa, but guess who they bought them from? Because the Muslim merchants. Right now, conservative estimates say there are at least 8 million black slaves held in Islamic countries today. I mean, I wasn't planning on talking about this, so I don't have the statistic, but you can look it up. Don't believe me? Look it up. Other questions? No? Yes, sir.
Why would any of these, especially women, back these political, be a part of the Muslim and not say anything against what's going on? It's very hard to understand.
Well, it's a very good question, and one that I unfortunately don't have the answer to. I can't for the life of me understand. But there seems to be this unholy alliance. I think there's a book called Unholy Alliance between socialism/communism and Islam and this feminism and Islam. And interestingly enough, they're both willing to sacrifice anyone and anything on the altar of acceptance. So feminists, referred to as feminazis, they are willing to sacrifice Muslim women on the altar of acceptance to Muslims and to Islam. And why that is, I have no idea. But you know what? I hope I live long enough to see the showdown between communism and Islam. Because neither one really likes the other. Right now, they're working with each other against all of us. But if we fall, that'll be one heck of a showdown to come down in your neighborhood. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
They don't really care for the gay community either, do they?
No. In Islam, the punishment for being gay or transgender or whatever it is death. Absolutely. No chance is given. There's no repentance. You can repent, you're still going to die. And why is that? It's because they believe it's more merciful to kill them than it is to let them live in that kind of a lifestyle. So that's something else you want to watch out for is words. Words don't translate the same. So Allah might be using the word mercy, but mercy to Allah is not the same mercy as it is to us. Honor to them is not the same as what honor is to us.
Which online Quran do you think is the most honest and accurate?
PoliticalIslam.com. Dr. Bill Warner's is the most accurate translation I have found. His videos are when I first saw him, and this was years ago, I wasn't doing any of this. I was like, wow, he's white and he gets it. He's very smart. I don't want everybody to be that smart and to get it. And he puts it in very nice, simple terms and goes over the history of it and goes over the words and the meanings. And guys, he's a scientist, all right? So he's interested in numbers. That's what he's interested in. So politicalislam.com. He even has really awesome books, and they're really well priced, $3, $4 for a book. And his books are, for example, women in Sharia, okay? So if you just want to know about women in Sharia, he has a book about it. So he's already filtered it all out, and he has it ready right there. Yes, sir.
So, a question. In the Muslim world,
yes,
was Barack Obama a Muslim or a Christian? Because I talked to a guy from Bosnia that was Christian,
yeah,
that his city was sacked by the Serbs, and he said, when your middle name is Hussein, you're telling the world that you're Muslim.
yes, absolutely. Gaddafi was the one who said, our brother Obama. That's what Gaddafi said before he died. He used to refer to Obama as our brother Obama. Brother is a very special term to Muslims. It's not thrown around easily. But here's the deal. To me, it doesn't really matter if he professed Islam or not. If you serve Islam, then you might as well be. And that's what he did. He served Islam day in and day out.
But if you have any Muslim blood in you, aren't you considered by the Muslim nation?
Yes. Yes. So my daughter, technically, they would want her back because she's Muslim blood, even though technically she's Irish and German now. Too. My little butt. And she's such a disgrace to my Muslim line. I love her. I always call her Hitler's nightmare, right? Because so originally we're Jewish, and her dad's German. Yeah. Yeah. So my little tan baby with big eyes. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
What name is this? The Warner, is that spelled W-E or is it
W-A-R-N-E-R. Yep. And by the way, he was on CARE's top hate list. And yep, he was on their top hate list. Then they realized that they were making him famous, so they took down the hate list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like to happily announce that I was on the SPLC's top hate list. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is the push for transgenders, and they're showing them with little boys, is that a push to get us used to pedophilia?
Yes. So this is on so many different fronts. I'm a libertarian, okay? I'm a Christian, and I hold strongly to my Christian beliefs. And in my Christian beliefs, homosexuality is a sin. So is lying, stealing, divorcing, all of it, okay? I don't point out to one as being more evil than others. And I love the sinner, and I can hate the sin. I'm able to do that. However, when I heard the term "love is love," my skin started to crawl. Well, because if love is love, then what's to stop an old man from loving a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old? What's to stop a man from loving 4 or 5 wives? That's why Islam aligned themselves with that, because if love is love, well then they can do whatever they want. Ultimately, they're willing to push any agenda as long as it serves them in the end. I mean, the transgenders and the gays are not really a big problem. They could just throw them off the cliff at the end of the day. That's what they've been doing in the Middle East for 1,400 years. Yes, sir.
On that subject, maybe also talk about the puberty thing and what cousins are.
What?
Okay, the boys, they call them cousins.
Oh, you're talking about the love teachers?
Well, basically the pedophiles.
Yeah.
Men, and then when they become men, they can't do it anymore. But up until the point they hit puberty, they can do whatever they want to.
Right, and there's a name for it, and I don't know what the name is, but it's a practice that takes place in Iran. It also takes place in Afghanistan. It takes place in many Muslim countries. Actually, the Arabian Gulf is kind of really famous for it. The Saudis, They say that boys are for pleasure and women are for reproduction. So that's something that's kind of culturally known, which is why when people, for example, in the true Middle East, which is what? Jordan, Iraq, kind of, Syria, Lebanon, and Israel-Palestine situation, that's the true Middle East. Those people don't usually marry out to the others, who are the people in the Gulf and in Africa. So for example, the king of Jordan, when he married off his sister to a Saudi prince, I believe he is, maybe he was Emirati, I don't remember, he's one of the Gulf guys. People in the Middle East said he sold his sister out because they're not, because of the practices that they do like that, they're not considered the high-class Muslims. It's all an unwritten rule book. Questions? Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the Report Islamophobia app?
I think I have heard about it. Is that actually a thing now?
It's actually a thing. Can I show you?
Yes, please.
We've actually been reporting on this earlier in the last couple of speakers, but basically, it's simply an app called Report Islamophobia. When you click it, Report Islamophobia appears, and it's simply, if you experience Islamophobia, if so, report. And when you click, advise someone you have is in trouble, call 911, blah, blah, blah. When you get through it, it goes through a series of steps of what you do.
So this is in line with Merkel and the rest of the UN and their agenda, Agenda 21, with their agenda to now Canada. I believe it's M13, MS13. They are trying to become even more Sharia compliant. That's what that app is. Anybody who speaks against Islam should be put to death.
I bring this up because you gave some good advice on how we can bring awareness to the dangers of Islam and such, but if this is a confrontation between them and traditional American values, we have an additional obstacle, which is that of political correctness.
Right.
How can we argue against the many facets of this PC culture of ours?
You can't argue against it. You can just go up in its face and hurt its feelings.
Yeah, you just basically just ignore the fact that their feelings are hurt on it.
Ignore the fact that their feelings are hurt. 2 days ago, I literally told somebody this. She asked me for advice. I said, nobody cares about your feelings.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. You just have to be honest with people. And the truth is, you're never going to change people's minds unless they're ready to have their minds changed. And what we can do is we can educate ourselves and we can make sure that we're ready if something does happen. But that's about all that we can do. And we could try to educate other people. But if other people want to put, let me put it to you this way. I have this family member, a distant cousin, who, bless his heart, born and raised here, and he's Christian, and he went to the Middle East for a month for vacation. He came back telling me what an Islamophobe I am. I'm like, really? You were there for 30 days? Tell me all about it. How sweet. Now, of course, he's a product of liberal colleges. He doesn't want to hear about it. The truth is, I really think that a lot of millennials, and I am a millennial, but a lot of millennials are looking for something to fight for, but we got beat to the punch, y'all. Somebody already convinced them of a bunch of crap, basically, and now we're late to the party. And it's really, how many Christians are in here? Oh boy, they're not going to like this. It's a failure of the church.
Yeah, right, right.
When Jesus comes knocking on pastors and priests' doors and says, why did you lead my people astray into these interfaith movements and saying all of the lovey-dovey stuff and never even saying the word Satan in church? This is what we have the outcome of. We're very ready to go up to, abortion mills and picket and throw our fences, but when a mom needs help, where's she going to go? Where is she going to get the help and support that she needs? We're ready to say these Muslims are brainwashing our kids. They're taking our daughters as wives. They're turning our sons into jihadis. The truth is, when the Muslim children need out, where are they going to go? The church turned its back on its people.
Right.
And we have to be that change. And in order to be that change, I'm sorry to tell you, you might have to become like me. You don't have to dye your hair red or anything, but you might get people that want to kill you. And I heard a guy recently say that if you're a Christian and nobody wants to kill you, you're not doing your job right. Yeah. So let's get some haters. Sorry, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Yes, sir.
We hear that you can't hardly use the word Muslim and terrorist anyway, and it seems like this goes way up. How far has this infected the FBI, CIA, and Homeland Security?
Michael, do you mind grabbing me the book in the back, please? There's a very excellent book called See Something, Say Nothing by Mr. Phil Haney. This book is going to break it down for you as exactly when this happened and how it happened and what the consequences of that are. Thank you, Coach. By the way, this guy right here, he's not going to like this. He volunteers to help me out and keep me safe. Completely volunteers. Yeah. Right. This is why America's so awesome. Today on the plane, this lady next to me is like, America's not the only country in the world. It's like, no, of course it's not, but it's the greatest. It's the bestest ever. She didn't like it. I think I triggered her. By the way, wasn't this past Christmas the best Christmas ever?
Yeah. Merry
yeah,
Christmas.
you could just sing, baby, it's cold outside, and people would get triggered. It was wonderful. It was great. All right, so this is the book. It's called See Something, Say Nothing. And honestly, y'all, I am not reading this book. I've been studying it for months. And you can see in here, well, you can see all of the highlights that I've done. Names and associations and organizations and political figures. It talks about Clinton giving a special visa to the grandson of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Ahmed al-Banna. She signed that visa under Obama. A special visa just for him to come into the United States. That's called becoming Sharia-compliant. The only thing stopping Sharia, honestly, from taking over right now isn't our politics. It's our guns.
Yeah.
It really is. That's the only thing. Yes, ma'am.
We were on a plane, and there was a large group of Muslims on the plane. It was a very small plane. And the fellow that was sitting next to my husband was a Somalian Christian. And he was bold. And he knew that there were many Muslims sitting around him. But he said that as long as they are in the minority, they will be peaceful.
Right.
Once they become the majority, that's when they'll...
Right. And take this into consideration. Not only did Muhammad, not only was he peaceful when he was in Mecca, was a refugee to Medina, then turned violent, right? So they're supposed to follow Muhammad's footsteps, hint, hint. Not only that, but when you look at Iran, prior to Jimmy Carter putting his nose where it didn't belong, the Shah was very westernized, okay? And Iran was not what you see today. Iran's women wore whatever they wanted, did whatever they wanted, they drank, they smoked, they did whatever. And Christians were able to practice their religion fairly freely, okay? The Iranian Revolution, by the highest estimates, only 10% of the population actually took part in it. So they don't even need to be a majority to turn this place upside down. CARE right now says that Muslims are at about 3%, and look at the damage that they're doing. So can you imagine what it would be at 10%? Look at their birth rates. I just read an article that we're basically going extinct because we are not having enough kids. When you look at Muslim families, they're having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids running around. So,
On welfare.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, I know some of my dad's family are millionaires and they still go and pick up their welfare check every month. Well, I guess now it's deposited into their little card. They don't pick it up anymore, huh? Yes?
Just out of curiosity, what kind of work did your dad do?
My dad was a professional crook. So, no, honestly, he was a crook. But he also took businesses that were failing. Super cool story. Well, in some ways, I guess. My dad got to the United States in 1987. He was pumping people's cars with fuel because he really doesn't have a degree. And that's how he was making his money. By the time we left in 1994, my dad was a millionaire. He had gone from pumping gas into the gas station to buying half of the gas station, then buying the whole gas station, then selling that one and buying another business. And he also committed, I'm trying to think what it's called, food stamp fraud. So he'd take the food stamps, right? And then he'd give people like lower than what it's worth. And then he'd go and cash in the food stamps and sell it. That's among also the Social Security fraud that we found out about later on. Hey, read my mom's book. You'll find out what he did. But honestly, we found out later on through documents that he had been receiving Social Security payments. He had put my grandfather in for Social Security payment. I don't even know how you do that. And my grandfather is not even American, and he put us as dependents on my grandfather. So he's receiving a check every month, even when we were in Jordan. And he had divorced my mother in 1994. She didn't even know about it till 10 years ago. She told me that. I was like, wow, you lived with him all this time? You didn't even have to. She goes, is that all you could think about? I was like, well, and my last sister was born in 97, so technically. I get into a lot of trouble with my mom. She prays for me a lot. Yes, sir.
Would you find firearms in a mosque?
Yes.
I'd heard that.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, Trumpster, President Trump, who I voted for, and I'm happy to say that. The only reason I voted for him, well, you might not be happy with what I'm about to say. The only reason I voted for him was to keep Hillary out. And, but honestly, I'm really amazed. So I just heard that he signed a bill to stop sex trafficking and named it after Frederick Douglass. How cool is that? The other thing that he did is when he did the travel ban, one of the things that people don't like to talk about, he demanded a report on honor killings in the United States. Wow. He sure did. That was part of it. And that, I believe me they know, CARE and ISNA and all, and the OIC, they know exactly what he asked for. And that was one of the reasons they went after that. All right, so does that answer your question? Mosques, actually, they've raided mosques in France and found weapons. Okay, now imagine this. I'm sure y'all have heard. Muslims are walking into churches in Paris and France, the Catholic nation, and slitting the priest's throats right in the middle of the service or the mass or whatever is going on. I mean, this is just, they've passed, and they're not a majority in that country.
Well, that's why we all know best are going now.
What do you feel about the future of Europe? Do you think it's lost?
Europe is gone. Europe is gone, and we've seen this before. When Islam first invaded Spain, it took something like 400 years for them to kick out the Muslims. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand worked very, very hard to get them out. When the Muslims arrived on the shores of Spain, there's a mountain in Spain called Tariq, is what it's Tariq, I guess in English. And the reason for that is that this guy, Tariq, was the leader. When they arrived on the shores of Spain, he lit the ships on fire and said, and I remember this, I haven't even heard it in years. I remember this from when I was a kid in school because we learned all of the military strategies of all of them in 3rd grade. Your enemy's in front of you and the sea is behind you. Where are you going to go? He burnt the ships so they wouldn't run away. And that's how they started the invasion of Spain. Of course, nobody also talks about the thousands of blonde and white, blue-eyed and green-eyed girls that were taken as sex slaves for the sultans and for the caliphates of the Muslim world. More questions? No? It's bedtime for me too. I get it. Well, thank you all for being here very much. I hope you found it useful. Thank you. Y'all have a good night. Be safe. Thank you. Before everybody leaves,